Hello everyone and welcome back finally to Ivan Demidov's scouting report for the 2024 NHL Draft. I'm Hadi Kalakash, I'm Director of Scouting for Dobber Prospects, and I'm so excited for this. It's been tabled for a while because I started cutting up tape for Ivan Demidov's report, and then quickly got sick with an illness that rhymes with Schmovid, and then that quickly turned into a sinus infection. So I've been kind of sidelined for the last 2 weeks with illness, but my voice is kind of back, so we're going to power through and get this done for you. So Ivan Demidov, selected 5th overall by the Montreal Canadiens. God, this part of his elite prospect profile looks good now. He's a December 05 birthday, a right winger, 6 foot, 195 pounds. Finally, his size and weight has been updated on the Elite Prospects website as well. And his production has been ridiculous, even heading back to his draft -1 season with SKA St. Petersburg, 62 points in 41 games. And just for fun, I used the Elite Prospects Premium tool, which, by the way, if you love prospects and you don't have this, it's very much worth your time. I'd recommend it. But yeah, his draft -1 production, a point and a half approximately per game, is good for second of all time among MHL prospects in their draft -1 season, right behind Matvei Michkov. And we'll get into that comparison in just a second. But also, let's focus on Demidov's draft year as well. This past season, 2 points per game through 30 games is ridiculous production. It's by a decent margin the best production of all time among MHL players. Now, a little kind of asterisk to that. Most decent prospects usually play a lot of KHL minutes in their draft year. That wasn't the case for Ivan Demidov, and that was mainly because he was kind of getting quote-unquote punished for not really wanting to stick around in the Russian system for long. He's already expressed interest in finishing his contract next year and signing in North America. So we're going to see Ivan Demidov in the Habs system in North America fairly soon. But what we're going to be breaking down today is kind of the overall game with Ivan Demidov. We're going to focus on the best asset and elite prospects highlights that here as well. His dangling, his handling skill is off the charts. It's probably the best I've ever scouted. We'll get into the details of that in a second. Elite Prospects also describes him as a cerebral tactician and an offensive forward. That really kind of gels well with what you see from him offensively, but there's also a lot more details in his game that I think are worth breaking down. So we're going to be looking at the overall game on and off the puck with Ivan Demidov. I am so excited for this. This is going to be a great video. So let's not waste any time with this and get right into the footage. Alright, so Ivan Demidov is going to be number 11 in white or in blue, and we're going to start off with the biggest standout in his game, and it's his stick handling ability. He has the best hands I have ever scouted. I started scouting seriously in about 2019. That was Jack Hughes' draft year, and he's got better hands than Jack Hughes and anyone I've scouted since. He's just so creative. The way that he solves problems with his hands is just absolutely ridiculous, and he's so confident in his ability. But it's not just that creativity and that confidence, but it's also the knowledge of how to freeze opponents' feet, catch them off guard, and make plays. He rarely dekes just to deke. He's always using his hands to kind of create plays. He's always scanning while he's stick handling to figure out where his teammates are, and he uses the right moves at the right moment in order to open up a passing lane or a shooting lane, and that's what leads to goals for him in the MHL. A lot of NHL stick handlers, a lot of the elite ones at least, often carry the puck in his hip pocket, but that's what's strange about Ivan Demidov. He carries the puck in front of him most of the time. The only other player that I've seen be this good of a stick handler from that position is Pavel Datsyuk, who's arguably the best stick handler ever. And Demidov's handling skill, his habits, his creativity, and especially the awareness with which he moves reminds me so much of Pavel Datsyuk, who's arguably the best stick handler ever. And let's just run that last clip back. I don't care that it didn't work. Who else would have been even thought of trying that out? This is the type of move you see in training, not the type of move you see in game. But that's just been so fun about watching Ivan Demidov this past year, is that he has the freedom and the creativity in order to just try things and figure out what works and what doesn't. Even if he's stuck at a level where he isn't really challenged by his opponents, he's challenging himself and finding ways to improve his game within that situation. I'm just going to let these next few clips of him run and allow you all to enjoy the stick-handling wizard that is Ivan Demidov.
Ну что же, и до выхода Ильи Белоусова у нас остается всего-то 40 секунд, а вот шайба в воротах!
По периметру пока передачи. Демидов одного обыграл, второго обыграл, третьего обыграл. Ну вы посмотрите, что делает Иван Демидов, а? Вот если бы он забросил, шайба летит. А сейчас едва от своего хоккеиста шайба в ворот не юркнула, обратите внимание. Вот было бы неприятно, так неприятно в этой ситуации. Продолжают 46-й атаковать. Передача, я думаю, даже здесь я...
Но этот пас рукой бы получился, если бы партнер докоснулся шайбы. Демидов. Снова Демидов. Отличная передача на Лазутина. Это очень красиво.
Пока второй период безголевым получается. Хотя количество моментов такое же. И вот гол! Как раз таки армейцы забивают и 3-0 делают счет. Вот еще один шанс и 5-0.
Действуют, да, есть там какие-то проходы от Демидова, но в целом тоже броски, подставления, добивание. Демидов выдал перед номером армейцев. Давайте посмотрим и насладимся. Ну как он здесь с неудобной отдал на дальнюю штангу. Обыграл соперника, увидел, что там открывается 71 номер.
Сумел выпустить шестого полевого игрока и в итоге шанс свой нашли. Демидов не первый раз уже тогда хорошо шайбу контролирует, причем пускай где-то на периметре. Но продолжает двигаться, он хочешь не хочешь, а открывает линии для передачи. Здесь увидел на дальней штанге Леонтьева.
Но здесь как раз никакого форс-мажора, а наоборот приятное для Амира событие. Он... Нет, ну это невозможно, конечно. — 11-0 есть рекорд.
Now let's look at Ivan Demidov's goal-scoring ability. Now there's two things that stand out. First and foremost, he loves to set up for one-timers at the half wall, and I really like that he creeps into pockets of space instead of staying in one spot. This is really translatable. It's going to be looking really good moving forward. Now the mechanics of his one-timer aren't really perfect. He's got a short wind-up and a long follow-through, which is more accuracy-focused and power-focused, and you can contrast that, for example, with what Alex Ovechkin does with his one-timer, which is the complete opposite. It's a high wind-up and a short follow-through. But I'm a big proponent of output over input when scouting. I don't really care if a prospect's mechanics aren't perfect, as long as the output's good. He gets elevation and power on his release, and he can beat goalies with that one-timer, which is what matters most at the end of the day. And the other part of his goal-scoring arsenal is his wrister, and this is where both the input and the output are amazing, in my opinion. He loads his weight really well on his inside leg, and he has an amazing curl and drag shot, which he can pull off in motion really easily. He can also shoot inside of dekes really well and just as accurately as from a standstill, which is really, really hard to do, and he has an amazing sense of timing with those releases. I also like the way that he engages defensemen head-on in order to create those opportunities to create screens for himself. Now, Demidov's constantly hitting seams between legs. He's almost always catching goalies with their feet planted. He shoots under sticks. He loves to use screens. His shooting habits are all about maxing out his odds of beating the goalie. So even if the release itself isn't like Cole Eiserman or Austin Matthews, where you feel like they could score and beat a goalie from basically anywhere, I still think Demidov could score 35, maybe even 40 goals in the NHL. On top of having game-breaking hands and a great shot, Demidov's also an elite playmaker. There's just so much that goes into that playmaking ability, but mainly with Demidov, it's again all about creativity and awareness with him. He knows when he needs to accelerate a pass through a lane before it closes, like he does on this play. He also knows when he needs to kind of just delay and let openings develop naturally, but when he needs to just pry open a defense with his hands, he's more than comfortable doing that too. On top of that, he's got a lot of playmaking skill too. I mean, just watch this backhand saucer area pass through multiple seams. Not a lot of young players can do this like he does. He often makes himself the focal point of distribution for his team as well, and he loves to dictate play from the half wall on the power play especially. He's just so effective from that position at finding lanes, finding seams, and he's got great timing and awareness to hit his teammates in open ice, so he's basically the perfect half wall passer. Demidov also loves to make plays off the face-off, and he's got the vision and reaction time to quickly spot an open guy and get him the puck in his wheelhouse. He reads the play twice as fast as anyone he's facing in the NHL, and that's really what made him the best player in that entire league. But this next play for me is the best playmaking clip of Ivan Demidov. A lot of players his age would have probably passed early to the winger who's being shadowed there, or they would have just skated right through the middle of the ice, but instead, Demidov fakes the pass in transition and then cuts across and delays, and then look at this beauty of a pass. This play was a masterclass in creating a goal out of almost nothing. There were about 8 different decisions he could have taken there that wouldn't have led to a goal here, but he made the right choice every single step of the way, and that's what makes him so special. There are a lot of other details that I love about Demidov's playmaking, like, for example, his ability to create off the wall, to kind of spin off the boards and find an open guy quickly, or also his ability to take unique routes off the puck to set up his passes and kind of force his teammates into open lanes. And that's why I'm not too worried about his ability to scale his game up to the NHL, because he already has a lot of details at work. He's also, for example, comfortable looking off his passes and using his shooting threat to kind of open up passing lanes. So there's just so much to Demidov's playmaking that I think is going to translate extremely well to the NHL level. I don't see the concerns about him playing junior all year and all that stuff. You can clearly see in his playmaking the details, the attention to detail that he has in his game that makes him such an effective forward in the NHL, will also make him a more effective player as he moves forward. Now let's talk about a part of Demidov's game that I don't think he gets enough credit for, and that's his off-puck movement and routes. He's insanely good at finding space off the puck, and he's always moving his feet to stay in passing lanes. And this is the one thing that I really look for when it comes to pure skill forwards, because if they're only effective offensively when they have the puck, then they're only going to be effective only maybe 1% of the time in the NHL, because in the NHL, even the best players in the world have the puck for only 1 to 2% of the entire game. With Demidov, his reads off the puck are elite. He has a sixth sense when it comes to reading defensive formations, and he just seems to kind of know what his teammates are going to do at all times. He also has a set play off the faceoff where he swings around the net to get lost in coverage and then kind of pops up at the back door, catches a high to low pass, and then swings it to the slot. And that's what's so interesting about Demidov's off-puck routes. It's just how many different ways that he can get lost, how well he reads where space is going to open up on the ice, and how the puck just always seems to just find its way to wherever he goes. He's always moving, he's always repositioning, and it makes it so hard to erase him from games. He always finds a way to have an impact, and it's because of that perpetual motion. If he doesn't like what he sees on one side of the ice, he swings to the other side, spots an area, and repositions. He swings up top to support his D at the blue line with a passing option, and then once he has the puck, it's game over. So when you have a player as skilled as Demidov on the ice, you want to try to stop him from getting the puck, but with Demidov, you just can't. He anticipates space, and he anticipates plays way too well not to get the puck at least once per game, and that's what I think is going to make him special in the NHL as he moves forward, is that particular area. Now let's focus on Demidov's skating, and I wouldn't call it a weakness by any means, but it's certainly unconventional and kind of quirky. He does this 10-2 thing really often, and he defaults to a really wide stance when he's stick handling. But if you remember what I talked about in the shooting segment, I care a lot more about output than I do about input. And with Demidov, the skating is where that gap is the most massive. Usually prospects who use that 10-2 skating style, they can't really exploit either their edges as well, but Demidov gets a lot of power behind his pushes from that stance, and you'll see that a couple times in the clips that I'm showing. The only concern that I have with Demidov's skating is that it could lead to injuries. He's a player who always is playing in traffic, and if he keeps that wide stance, he's almost definitely going to open himself to lots of knee-on-knee contact in the NHL. So in other words, his skating isn't going to affect the way he plays in the NHL, but it might shorten his career if he isn't careful. But if you ask Demidov to start being careful, then you lose a lot of what makes him so special. So the best route, in my opinion, is to work on using his outside edges, keeping his feet moving while he's deking, because it's not only going to make him even more dynamic, but it's going to help him avoid injuries. I also want to talk about some defensive clips with Demidov, because I don't think he gets enough love for that side of his game. I really like the engagement off the puck with Demidov. He forechecks well, and he puts pressure on defensemen with the right timing to kind of make them do something they don't want to do, make a mistake. I also like the angles that he takes on defenders. I like the way that he forces them to play pucks up the boards instead of through the middle. I wouldn't call him necessarily a hard forechecker, but he's certainly a smart forechecker. He also puts in second and third efforts on the back check, and he doesn't give up on plays once the puck crosses his own blue line. That, for me, is a big difference between him and Matvei Michkov, or at least one of the big differences between them. Michkov has insane offensive instincts, he has an elite shot, but he tends to give up on plays a lot once he reaches his own blue line. He tends to slow down once the puck reaches the defensive zone. With Demidov, the effort and the desire to make defensive plays is definitely there. There's certainly room for improvement in his defensive tools, and I think a lot of it ties back to his edge work. On the forecheck, sometimes he gets beat pretty easily when a defender cuts back on him because his feet can't really keep up, even though he's smart enough to see it coming. But still, I think Demidov's defensive reads and his engagement are more than good enough to make him a decent defensive player in the NHL. He might not play on your PK, he's not going to be a defensive burner, but he's not going to be a liability either. The best offensive players in the NHL get the puck so often because they're at least just good enough defensively to help their team get the puck. The more you have the puck, the more you get scoring chances, and Demidov definitely understands that. He scored a decent share of goals off of defensive zone steals and good defensive plays, so I'm not concerned. And finally, I do want to talk about Demidov's physical game. And although it's probably his biggest weakness, there's one thing he does physically that I really, really love, and it's proactive contact. Demidov doesn't wait for players to close down on him before he engages physically. He proactively engages physically, and he catches his opponents off guard by doing that. So even though Demidov isn't the strongest, he uses his brain to solve problems where he's at a physical disadvantage. And to me, that's a sign of a player who, with time and gym reps and all that, should be able to scale his physical game up to the pro level. And that is it for my breakdown of Ivan Demidov, possibly the most creative 18-year-old I've ever scouted. Thank you very much for watching, and before I leave this video, please take a second to leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content in general. Let me know in the comments down below as well what you thought of the video, what you think of Montreal picking Demidov at 5th overall, or who you'd like to see next. To reward you for sticking till the end, here's 5 minutes of my absolute favorite Ivan Demidov clips from this past season. Hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, Hattie out.
Хажеев так на одном колене, знаете ли, сейчас стоит, думает о бренности бытия и о том, как, в принципе, жить дальше.
Не беру говорить, что шайба гениальная. Просто по центру вкатился, бросил с кистей и застал врасплох. Иван Демидов этим броском.
Да. Прошло 8,5 минут, если быть совсем уж точно. И он опять все сделал сам. Посмотрите, во-первых, он начал эту атаку. Потом такую хоккейную стеночку сыграл с Владиславом Романовым. Вот как это было. И сразу двоих. — 11-0 есть рекорд. Этой встречи. Тут меняй, не меняй вратарей. Вот я еще раз к этой мысли вернусь. Фисенко обыграл 1 в 1 Демидов очень легко. Ну и потом, конечно, ничего не мог вратарь поделать. Еще посмотрите, как он верхом пустил шайбу. Красиво. Лазутин, видите, теперь еще и...
Не точно. Осипов подбирает. Вновь Демидов. Пауза. Гол! Да, но это, конечно, технарь. Ну, движением, что он якобы бросает. Обыграл и защитника, и вратаря. И вот, смотрите, на последней минуте Иван Демидов забрасывает. Вы знаете, так не ожидали такого сюрприза. Вот момент, гол! Куда-нибудь туда подальше, в среднюю зону. Но это уже позже. Да, вот смотрите, подбирает шайбу Демидов. Мгновенная передача. Вот, как он увидел Романова. А я так понимаю, что они уже друг друга чувствуют. Они практически весь сезон. СКА «Спартак» в серии пока 1-0. Всех приветствую в чате. Вход в ледовый открыт, действительно. Вот первая шайба. К удовольствию.
Демидов, там офсайд, вот теперь офсайда нет. Иван с шайбой продолжает накручивать всех, отдает Лазутину. И отличная передача от Лазутина. Баусов не увидел ее. Снова Демидов. Пас ближнему. И Демидов! Еще момент, гол! 3-0. Даниил Лазутин. Родионов. Вот здесь Осипова поймали на силовой. Демидов. Так, с использованием конька. Ну, это, по-моему, что-то у Рональдиньо. Он подсмотрел и отдал Демидов Сураеву. Никита забрасывает. Эта шайба полностью заслуга Ивана Демидова. Покажи. Короткого и Сураева-то никто и не забрасывал больше. Демидов на вход в зону отдает Романову. Тот выставляет Демидову и дальняя, конечно. Вот как будто я сказал, что никто не забрасывал. И Сураев подумал, действительно, а что это никто не забрасывал?
И не заметил, как нарушение правил организовал. Вот это розыгрыш со вбрасывания, дорогие. Да, очередное удаление. И вспомните, я говорил про это буквально недавно. Великолепно. Просто великолепно. Ну, это... Я думаю, здесь никакое описание не требуется. Вы и сами все прекрасно видите.
К счастью для Атланта, конечно же.
К счастью для Атланта. Ну что же, и до выхода Ильи Белоусова у нас остается всего-то 40 секунд. А вот шайба в воротах! В воротах шайба.
За армейцами. Демидов здорово ушел от соперника. И дальше передача на Романова. В этом году есть у него 2 игры за команду Всероссийской хоккейной лиги. Еще раз повтор. Да, ну здесь дальше синей линии заехать не получилось. Демидов. Хорошая передача. Поляков бросает. Это 4-0. Достаточно быстро. Дальше останавливает атаку Поляков, но на этом не заканчивается. Атака СКА и Демидов. Если я не ошибаюсь, ассистентский хет-трик у Ивана Демидова. Да. Как раз